So apparently all the kids on TikTok are going crazy for this one. Directed by Michael Patrick Jean, we are talking Alma and the Wolf. And I kind of saw a description of this one and it said a word that I dread whenever I see a movie description, surreal. And I was like, oh God, I don't really like weird, artistic, surreal movies, but I thought I would give it a go. I didn't really know much about it. And what's the story? It focuses on a kind of sleepy community in America somewhere, and it primarily focuses on this policeman called Ren. And he is a little bit of a guy whose life is somewhat unravelled, divorced from his wife, somewhat estranged from his son, has a drinking problem, kind of like, you know, he's not doing particularly great career-wise. And he ends up kind of coming across a woman that he knows out in the kind of the road somewhere, and she's kind of covered in blood, and she says that a wolf has killed her dog, and this is Alma from the title. And she says, you know, that this wolf who was surrounded by like a flock of goat attacked and killed the dog and stuff like that, and wants this policeman to, you know, find and kill this wolf. Not long after that, the policeman's kind of teenage son goes missing. And this kind of goes down a strange path with some interesting visuals. And yes, we kind of do see a kind of werewolf, is what I will say. And that's all I'm really going to say on the plot, to be honest. And it has a somewhat of a bloodthirsty finale, let me just say that. Alright, so let's talk about it in a little more detail. Let's go into some positives and negatives. This is going to be spoiler free, so this is going to be vague. I will say this is more of a psychological horror movie, more so than a creature feature. There are some scenes that do involve a kind of werewolf creature. Let me just say that. There are some bloody violent scenes in this movie. But the movie is more a psychological one. It is more about grief. It is more about mental health. It is more about sort of, you know, one's kind of spiraling out of control and, you know, just being in denial about things and things like that. I don't want to go too much more into descriptives because I don't want to give things away. But suffice to say, that is the real story here. What can we say that does work? I think this movie's biggest strength is our central performance by the actor who plays Ren, this police guy. The acting performance is really varied here because we have some real highs and lows. And you know, we have scenes where there's elation, we have scenes where there's sorrow, where there's anger, and I think this actor does a very, very good job of carrying a lot of the weight of this movie on his shoulders because he's asked to do so much. Now, the movie is surreal. A lot of it is going to be, again, with being very vague here, is lots of kind of imagery. You know, it's not just kind of like werewolf style imagery we see here. There's almost like a kind of a scene that involves like a witch with a kind of like a burning head. Almost like there's some type of virus that is making people kind of like be violently ill and then going through some changes. So there's kind of like some quite out there scenes. There's some quite sort of emotionally gut punching scenes as well. And some scenes of brutal violence in the film. So the movie certainly has some visual stylings behind it, and I do think it also packs a punch emotionally in some emotive scenes. The movie's shot very well and is sort of an artistic movie with artistic flourishes. I do think the movie, even though I would say yes, this is somewhat of an art house movie. Yes, there are some surreal moments. I do think some of it will be somewhat hard to understand for someone who's looking for more of a straightforward sort of horror film. I do think it sort of makes sense. However, I will say I think when you watch this movie as a whole, okay, you can see what the movie is trying to do, and I have tried to give you some clues without sort of spelling it out. You know, that's kind of, you know, it's fairly well done for the movie that it's trying to be, which is trying to be a little bit, it's hiding its cards. Let's just say that. It's kind of like it trying to keep a mystery under the wraps until kind of the last act of the film. Let's just call that. And I think in a way, once you've watched it, yes, you can kind of, I think there's enough there to kind of put the pieces together to understand the narrative, and to a large degree anyway. And you can kind of get the gist of what the story is trying to tell. I don't think it's completely successful in that. But yes, you know, I think there's enough pieces here where you can kind of, okay, I can see what the movie is trying to do there. What doesn't work for me, okay, and this is going to be hard without giving any away spoilers, but I will try. So the first two acts of this movie suggest there's some shenanigans going on. There's some weird stuff here that is kind of going on in the movie. And you're thinking, what is going on? Because it seems to be suggesting a whole bunch of different things. Some of it's supernatural, some of it's sort of more of just a mystery, some of it doesn't make sense at all. And then we could have gone to the third act, which kind of ties it together. But I will say, I think when the third act is revealed and we see what has happened, the events that we see in the third act, I feel kind of it wasn't earned in a way, because I do feel, okay, that's what the movie is trying to say, and the first two acts are almost the kind of the condition of the third act, the result of the third act is the best way I would sort of say it. But when you're following this character, given the information that we are given about our character of Ren, I feel that the work isn't done to build up to this point. You know, the events that we see in the third act, I just feel, okay, there's some pretty brutal stuff that happens. I don't think it was particularly earned. I feel it kind of comes out of somewhere to a degree of nowhere. There are some extenuating factors, and again, I'm not going to spell out for you, but some things I've mentioned in this review. But even so, I felt, I don't know, it wasn't, to me it was kind of like, I still don't know if I completely buy this. It seems to have come out of nowhere to a degree. We also have to say, there's a lot of things that we see in this movie, and let's just say a portion of this is going to be pure hallucination, pure, almost a fantasy from a character's point of view. How much of this? Well, you know, again, I don't want to spell it out, but, you know, you'll think, okay, so it seems to be the movie is trying to deliberately mislead to a degree. Now, I think there are clues in this movie that will kind of point to what it's actually kind of trying to say. But I think the movie, when it comes down to it, you might feel shortchanged in the fact that the movie is leading you around the houses so much, you think, okay, the movie is deliberately trying to be misleading whilst dropping in a few clues, but you feel, okay, that the point of the movie is this, but you've taken me around the garden path, deliberately so, and as such you feel kind of a little bit cheated by it. Yeah, so the movie also, I think, will disappoint people who want a certain type of movie. When you've seen scenes from this, you're going to be expecting this is going to be a certain type of movie. And it isn't. It's something else. And I feel people might feel shortchanged in a way. that's not necessarily a criticism, really. It's just going to be what people's expectations might be, because the movie is what it is. The movie's telling the story that it's telling, and I think in a way it's successful at that. But I do feel the movie is deliberately misleading, and also I think that some of the actions that we see from characters, I feel, are a little bit out of nowhere. There wasn't enough build up to that. I feel decisions made or actions that are taken, okay, you can to a degree see where that's come from, but it's so extreme in a way that you think, I wasn't seeing the build up to that point. It seems to have come out of somewhat of nowhere. I guess it's possible, but you know, this is a story. This is meant to lay the groundwork. I don't really think it did. So an interesting psychological movie, emotional, emotive, dark, and a good performance. But I think as a whole, the story is a little lacking. There you go. Vague. That's the best I can do without giving anything away. 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Please do leave me your thoughts if you've seen the film, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.